This morning got a 1966 Honda S90, same engine as a CT90. The coil arrangement and everything is similar. So this bike, I just got the cylinder redone. I bore cylinders here. That's how this bike ended up here. It was rusted solid and locked up. So we got that done. Did a few other things, cleaned the carbon, etc. And for the first time today, I got my battery in, and we're gonna see if it sparks. Of course it doesn't. I'm gonna go through the simple process, or a thorough process, on how I check the ignition systems. First thing you're gonna do is make sure your battery has 6 volts, because these don't run without a battery. This is a brand new battery, but just to verify, we're gonna check our voltage. And I'm just gonna do it right here at this fuse. Checking the fuse is good. We're gonna take our multimeter, any multimeter that has these functions on it. This is a Craftsman. I'm gonna switch to voltage DC 20. The lighting is bad here. We're gonna ground to the bike. I'm gonna use that screw on the cover and then touch our battery. Positive. We've got 6.21 volts. So we know our battery's good. Another way to check this without a multimeter is turn on your headlight. Look at your headlight. If your headlight's not bright, you need to charge your battery, because, like I said, it's important that the voltage of this battery is up. Next thing we're going to do is remove the spark plug, place it back into the coil boot, plug boot, and ground it to the engine, and kick the bike over. Make sure your ignition's on, and look for a spark. You got nothing there, so let's move on to the next thing. Okay, we're over on the left side of the bike. We're going to pull the points cover off, and let's check our ignition timing. While we're at it, we got this cover off, and there's one more thing I want to show you while we're here. Something to check while you got this cover off and you're looking at your points. I've got some buddies who are running these, and they're complaining about their RPM idle being all over the place, erratic. And it doesn't matter what setting you have on your carburetor screw, the one that stops the slide. Something that could be is the advance for the timing. Behind this backing plate, there are some weights that sling out, and as they sling out, they advance this cam forward and back. So make sure it's free. Give it a wiggle. When I got this bike in, this was solid and full advance. So you'd have a hard time getting the timing right on that. We're looking at our points now. We're gonna get our multimeter and check something here. With the points open, and you put a multimeter lead on the spring into the case and your battery on, you should get 6 volts. Which right now, I am not. I'm not getting it. Let's just put it in headlight mode to make sure. So we're not getting power there. Something to look for in a good ignition is 6 volts here, and when these points are closed, it'll go to 0 because it's sending the current to the spark plug wire. With the battery turned on and visually inspecting your plug, when you snap this and close it, every time it closes, it should go pop, 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 pop. You should see your blue spark there. So we're gonna skip ahead the points adjustment because we know the problem is before it ever gets here. Okay, off camera, just to get you guys caught up, I removed the exhaust pipe. The intake needs to be disconnected. This chain guard removed so you can get access to your bolts. There's 3. I've pulled those bolts and put a screwdriver in there to chase the bolt. And let's see what kind of damage we got in here. I guarantee you there's mice have chewed in this frame. It's a great like mouse house if you had to design one. So let's take a look. Drop that down, make sure nothing's binding. Bare minimum stuff removed here. We might end up removing the chain. We might end up removing, oh my goodness. We might end up removing the brake pedal too. It's in the way right now. But we can already take a peek in here and see the carnage. This is Mr. Jangles. He's a circus mouse. So I found a wire. It's chewed off and it goes to the condenser right here. We're gonna have to make a new piece of wire here. Let's start with that. Some of these components here, if you're looking for them, that's your condenser on the back. And this is the coil. I'll refer to those later. If you need to replace them, that's how you get to them. You got to drop the engine, which is not as bad as a Bugatti oil change. We're going to solder these together. See, I've added just about 6 inches of wire here. Turning my soldering iron up. This particular case, I could have replaced the condenser, which is this little fella right here. It would have had new pigtail on there for me to replace that wire. Kind of in a time crunch to get this bike done though. Promised I'd have it ready this week. This lead here supplies power to the coil. Troubleshooting anything is like looking for your lost car keys. When you go and look in one spot for your keys and they're not there, make sure you do a thorough enough job so that you never have to look in that spot again. Okay, so you don't go all over and then go back where you started. Troubleshooting this bike, I went in half at the power to the points. So by testing voltage on that spring, I knew that it wasn't there, and that led me to, I'm not getting battery power through all the mystery to the points, right? So we found that problem. If you got to that point where you had power at there and you still didn't have spark, you could go the other direction and say, now the points need to be cleaned, or my coil's bad, the spark plug boot could be broken, or don't forget the simple stuff, a spark plug. You need a new spark plug. So once you've visited these things and never have to go back, you can move on confidently. Let's test a coil. Our coil was fine in this bike, but this is a new coil. And what we'll do is set up our multimeter to resistance. We'll start at 20K. We're going to test between the ground and the end of our wire without the boot, and we've got 10.4. Your bike's going to be a little different. It's going to be 5,000 to 10,000 ohms for that check. Switch our multimeter to 200, and we'll check right between the two leads. We have 3.0. You're going to be looking for 1,700 or less on your Honda coil. If you've got more than that, it's probably burn up, and then you need to replace it. That's going to be a very rare thing for your bike. So with our repair made, turn the key on. I've got the engine grounded with just an aluminum wire here to the frame, which completes the circuit for the battery. Don't let that confuse you. I just want to make sure it's right before I put the engine back in the frame. So we're grounded here, and testing the tang, we have 6.21 volts on the arm. Got the spark plug on the case there. It keys on, and we got spark. All right, I'm ready to put this back in the bike now. So let's talk about ignition timing. On your flywheel, take notice that you'll see right above where it says CS90, there's an arrow, and it's pointing clockwise. Then across from that, you'll see a T and a mark, another mark, and an F. T is top dead center. F is where the points should open. In other words, fire. So we're going to turn the motor over. First thing we do is check our points gap. So we're going to rotate the engine, but just look at your points and watch for them to open to the widest position. Take a 14 thousandths feeler gauge and make sure that that slips through there. If it doesn't, go ahead and loosen these screws here and here and adjust that till the gap is right. Okay, once you've got that, I'm going to rotate the engine clockwise to the mark that says F. The engine is in its intake stroke. It's not in its compression stroke. So we're going to go ahead and go over 180 degrees. And the reason I know that is because the points were already open. So right now they're closed and they're just beginning to open when I cross this direction. Let's hook up. I have one of these buzz boxes. It helps with a video because you can hear when the points start to open. You can use a test light or a multimeter by grounding one side of the points plate to the other, so you'll know that that switch is opening. Put this on the lead here and be careful not to touch the body of the bike in any way. We're just really wanting to touch this tab of metal here. You hear that noise, listen for the change in the noise. You hear that change? You won't be able to see it, but I've got it to where that noise goes right at the F mark. So that's telling us that the points are opening at the F. If I have a thorough video by itself on my channel, if you subscribe, I'd appreciate it. But look down there, it says 3 timing methods. I think I was working on a GT250. So those same ideas apply here. I'm going to attempt to describe a potential booby trap for the early Hondas. It'd be a good idea to put some shrink wrap around that little terminal, or just make sure that it's not twisted and touching the backing plate. So make this float a little bit, and then not so much that it sticks into your cover when you reattach the cover. The license plate on this bike says 1981, so this could possibly be the first attempt to start it in that long a time. So we've got our choke on, key is in the run position. Not bad. We're gonna put this cover back on. It's blowing oil everywhere, but hey, what's some progress there? Burning's running pretty good, man.